They say pride is watching your child become everything you never had the chance to be. I believed that, until the day my son called another woman, Mom. My name is Carolyn Blake. I'm 65 years old. I've cleaned houses, poured coffee, and answered phones for nearly 3 decades, so my son could wear a white coat one day. And he did. But at his graduation, I wasn't introduced as his mother. I was called a family friend. This is the story of how I was erased, and how I refused to disappear. Because some sacrifices deserve to be remembered loudly. When people ask if I ever had dreams of my own, I usually smile and say, yes, just one. It wasn't to travel the world or retire by the beach. It wasn't to live in a big house or wear silk robes like the women on magazine covers. No, my dream was simple, painfully simple. I wanted to see my son, Nathan, wear a white coat and walk across that graduation stage as a doctor. That was it. I was 36 when my husband walked out. He left behind nothing but a mountain of unpaid bills and a little boy with eyes too wide for the pain he was about to carry. Nathan was only 5, and he didn't understand why the front door slammed or why Daddy stopped calling. But I understood. I understood that from that moment on, it was just me. Me and the boy I loved more than life itself. That night, I sat at our kitchen table, surrounded by final notices and empty envelopes. I stared at them like they were enemies and made a silent vow. My son would not be denied the life I never had. He would not grow up with hunger in his belly and fear in his chest. He would never feel like he didn't belong in the room. I worked mornings as a housekeeper, scrubbing strangers' floors, polishing silverware I could never afford. By afternoon, I was a waitress at a roadside diner, smiling at customers too tired to smile back. Weekends, I answered phones at a front desk, pretending I wasn't aching head to toe. My body gave out before my will ever did. There were days I didn't sleep more than 2 hours. Days my hands were so raw from bleach and detergent, I could barely open a jar. I skipped meals to pay for Nathan's textbooks, stitched his clothes when they ripped, and taped up the soles of my shoes instead of buying new ones. But Nathan, he made it worth it. Every A on his report card, every school project, every time he came home beaming because a teacher told him he was special. Those were my trophies. I kept his drawings on the fridge like they were framed masterpieces. I held on to every moment like it was gold. He said he wanted to be a doctor when he was 7. And from that day forward, I treated it like prophecy. Every penny I earned had a purpose. Every sleepless night was fuel. He'd study late into the evening, and I'd sit nearby, folding laundry or counting tips, just to be close. Sometimes I'd catch him glancing at me, and I'd pretend not to notice. But I knew he saw. He saw how hard I tried. That dream kept me alive. It was never about me. It was always about him. And now, standing in the back of that auditorium, smoothing out the wrinkles of my old dress, I thought, this is it. This is the day the dream comes true. The air inside the auditorium was thick with pride and perfume. Families buzzed around me, holding bouquets, laughing, brushing tears from their cheeks as names echoed through the loudspeaker. I stood near the back, my heels pinching, my heart racing. The dress I wore wasn't new, it hadn't been new in years, but I'd bought it with saved tips from the diner, just for this moment. I'd even splurged on a manicure, chipped now from the bus ride, but still polished enough to make me feel presentable. As the ceremony began, I scanned the sea of identical white coats and matching gowns, searching for the one face that made this all worth it. And then, there he was. Nathan, my Nathan. Standing tall, radiant, as if the stage itself had been built just for him. My throat tightened. He looked like everything I'd ever hoped he'd be. It was as if I could see both the little boy with cotton balls in his toy stethoscope and the man he had become all at once. I didn't need a front row seat. I didn't need a spotlight. I just wanted to see him step into the future I had worked so hard to give him. And when his name was called, I clapped until my hands ached. Afterward, the crowd poured into the reception hall. There were string lights, champagne flutes, and balloons drifting lazily across the polished floor. Camera flashes went off like stars. I moved slowly through the crowd, careful not to bump into anyone, my eyes locked on one person, Nathan. He was surrounded by a circle of polished, confident people, men in suits, women in designer heels, the kind of crowd that made me instinctively want to hide my scuffed shoes. But I kept walking. I'd waited years for this moment. That's when I saw her. The woman standing beside Nathan. She wore a sleek navy dress, flawless makeup, diamond earrings that shimmered under the lights. I assumed she was a faculty member, maybe a mentor, someone important. I raised my hand in a small wave, and Nathan caught my eye. He smiled, but not the way he used to. It was quick, polite, distant. Still, I stepped forward. My heart was full, my arms already beginning to lift, rehearsed words dancing in my mind. "I'm so proud of you, Nathan. You did it. We did it." But before I could speak, the woman beside him leaned in with a dazzling smile. "Darling," she said, placing a hand on his arm. "Aren't you going to introduce me?" Nathan turned to the group. "Everyone, this is Miranda," he said, glowing. "The woman who's made everything possible for me. My mother." My world tilted. My hands froze mid-air. My throat closed. My heart, my exhausted, hopeful heart, stopped. I didn't speak. Not at first. I couldn't. Because in that moment, the boy I raised, the son I'd poured my life into, had erased me with a single sentence. I must have stood there for a full 5 seconds, though it felt like hours. The world around me carried on, laughter, music, champagne glasses clinking. But inside me, everything had gone still, numb. My arms hung awkwardly by my sides. The congratulations I had practiced on the bus ride over, the words I had rehearsed through tears and tired nights, dissolved like sugar in water. Nathan didn't look ashamed. Not exactly. He just looked distant, as if I belonged to a life he had long since packed away in some forgotten drawer. I took a small step forward, smiling faintly, trying to keep the pieces of myself from scattering. "Nathan," I whispered, my voice tight but hopeful, arms slightly parted. He shifted back, just one step, barely noticeable, but it was enough to build a wall I hadn't seen coming. "Mum, hey, you made it." The way he said it, like I was someone's neighbor or a distant aunt he hadn't seen in years, shredded something in me. Before I could speak again, the woman, Miranda, stepped in, her hand still resting on his arm like it had always belonged there. "Darling, introduce us," she said sweetly. Nathan turned back to the group. "Everyone, this is Miranda, the woman who's made everything possible for me, my mother." The words hit harder the second time. My mouth opened slightly, but nothing came out. I could feel people's eyes flicking toward me now, curious, confused. One of Nathan's friends turned to me. "And you are?" he asked with polite disinterest. I looked at my son. He glanced at me, casual as ever. "This is Carolyn. She's a family friend. She's been supportive." Supportive. Supportive? 28 years of washing dishes, folding uniforms in the dead of night, skipping meals and birthdays and dreams. Supportive? I nodded slightly. My body moved without my mind's permission. My mouth smiled, but my chest burned. And somewhere inside me, something cracked. But it didn't break. Because in that silence I remembered who I was. I hadn't come this far, worked this hard, bled and starved and survived, to be dismissed as a family friend. I hadn't shaped this boy into a man just to be airbrushed out of his life story. So I took a breath. Not a dramatic gasp, just a quiet, steady inhale. Enough to gather the strength I'd earned 1 year at a time. "Actually," I said. The word sliced through the noise like a blade. Heads turned. Even Miranda's diamond smile dimmed. I said it again, louder this time. "Actually, I'm Nathan's mother. His real mother." The room fell silent. Miranda's hand dropped from Nathan's arm. Nathan's jaw tightened. "Caroline," he hissed, voice low and clenched. "Maybe we should talk about this somewhere else." I met his gaze, unmoving. "I think we're long past privacy. I wasn't there to embarrass anyone. I wasn't there to fight. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't cry or make a scene. I just stood there, back straight, heart pounding, eyes locked on the boy I had given everything to." The room had quieted, the buzz of champagne and compliments replaced by an uneasy stillness. I could feel it, the shifting discomfort, the whispers being swallowed before they left tongues. I didn't care. Let them look. Let them hear. "I'm not here to cause trouble," I said, my voice steady even though my fingers trembled. "And I'm not here to steal the spotlight." I paused, letting the words settle. "I'm here because I raised Nathan. From the moment he took his first breath to the day he got his acceptance letter to medical school, I was there." I saw Miranda's lips part, but she didn't speak. Nathan's friends shifted uneasily, their faces a mix of curiosity and discomfort. I worked 3 jobs. I missed birthdays, skipped meals, sold my wedding ring for his textbooks. I gave up everything so he could have this life. And then I reached into my purse, that old worn leather thing that had been with me through it all. I unfolded a small faded paper. The creases were deep, the ink nearly rubbed away by time. Nathan's eyes caught it, and he froze. "Do you remember this?" I asked softly. "You were 9. It was a child's drawing, a stick figure in a white coat, arms wide open. Above it, in crooked handwriting, 'When I'm a doctor, I'll buy my mum a big house so she doesn't have to work anymore.'" Gasps rippled through the group. Nathan stared at the paper, speechless. His lips parted, but no sound came out. "I kept this in my wallet for 19 years, I said. "On nights when my hands were raw from scrubbing floors and I hadn't eaten more than toast, I'd take this out and remind myself what I was fighting for." The silence was absolute. Even the music in the background had somehow faded. Miranda's voice finally broke the stillness, cool and composed. "Nathan's been living with his father and me since he was 17. We supported him through college and med school." I turned toward her. "With what? The money I sent every month? The student loans that are still in my name?" Her eyes blinked fast. A tell. Nathan looked down. "Mom, please," he said quietly. "Not like this." "I'm not angry that you found help," I said, not harsh, just honest. "I'm glad they were kind to you. What I can't accept is being erased." I looked him in the eye. "I sat through every appointment, stitched every costume, stayed up nights tutoring you when I had to be at work by dawn. I didn't do it for credit. I did it because I love you." Then I turned to everyone else in the room. "I don't want applause. I don't need validation. I just refuse to be invisible." And in that moment, for the first time that day, no one looked away. For a long moment, Nathan just stared at the drawing. I could see the battle behind his eyes, pride, shame, guilt, all colliding in silence. Then, from somewhere in the crowd, a voice gently broke the tension. A young woman, one of Nathan's classmates, stepped forward and lightly touched my arm. "Thank you," she whispered. That was all. But it was enough. Nathan blinked, his eyes wet. He took a step toward me. "Mum, I'm sorry, I didn't think." "No," I said softly. "You didn't. But now you have to." I could feel the entire room holding its breath. Nathan looked back at Miranda, then at the friends who had called her his mother, who had laughed beside him moments ago as if she had birthed and built him. Someone finally asked the question that lingered in every stunned silence. "Why did you call her your mother?" He hesitated, searching for the words. When they came, they were so quiet I almost didn't catch them, because I was ashamed of me. The room stilled again. He cleared his throat, voice trembling. "Not of you," he said, turning to me, "but of where I came from, the tiny apartment, the second-hand clothes, your 3 jobs, the way people looked at me when I said you were a housekeeper." He gestured faintly to the polished group surrounding him. "Their parents are surgeons, CEOs, Ivy League legacies. I wanted to belong. so I borrowed someone else's mother. The words stung, not because they were cruel, but because they were so heartbreakingly honest. Nathan turned back to Miranda. She and her husband Richard took me in after my dad showed up again. They opened doors for me, introduced me to their world. It was easier to pretend our life never existed. I nodded slowly, my voice steady. I understand wanting to be someone else, Nathan. There were days I wished I could escape too. Days I cried into a dish towel or fell asleep still wearing my shoes. But do you know what I never wanted to change? He shook his head. Being your mother. There was a pause, quiet, raw, painful. Then another voice spoke up. I'm James, a young man said, stepping forward and offering his hand. Nathan's roommate. I shook it, confused. He's told me all about you, James said. He never stopped. Late at night when we were cramming for exams, he'd talk about how you never let him give up. I turned to Nathan, stunned. Then why this? Why pretend? Before he could answer, a man in a sleek grey suit approached. Confident, composed, with Miranda by his side. He clapped Nathan on the back. There's my graduate, he said proudly. Already spoke to Dr. Carilli about a residency spot. Then he noticed me. You must be one of Nathan's professors. Before I could correct him, Miranda touched his arm gently. Richard, this is Carolyn, Nathan's mother. His smile faded. I thought... Miranda interrupted, her voice suddenly brittle. Well, it's... complicated. And that's when I knew. The truth was only beginning to unravel. The air in the room had changed. Politeness was peeling away, replaced by confusion, tension, something unspoken pressing against the walls. Richard's arm tightened slightly around Miranda's waist as he turned to Nathan. Son, what's going on? Nathan swallowed hard, then looked at me. His expression was unreadable, somewhere between guilt and fear. But when he finally spoke, his voice was low and clear. There's something I need to tell you, something I never told either of you. The chatter around us dimmed again. Even Miranda stiffened beside Richard, her smile now a thin, strained line. Nathan looked down at the floor as if the words were hiding in the shine of his shoes. 8 years ago, when my father, Derek, reached out to you, he didn't do it because he suddenly cared. He didn't come back for love or family. He came back because he needed money. Miranda blinked. Richard frowned. That's not what he told us, he said slowly. He said you and your mother were struggling, that he wanted to help get you through college. Nathan nodded grimly. That part was true, but what you didn't know was that before he ever contacted you, he came to our apartment first. He showed up at the door one night, after being gone for over a decade, and asked my mum for $10,000. I felt every gaze shift to me. I nodded quietly, confirming it. He appeared out of nowhere, I said. No warning, no apology, just demands. I told him no. I didn't have the money, not then, not ever. When I refused, he left in a rage. Nathan continued. The next day, he messaged me directly. He said he could connect me to people, important people, who could help get me into med school. But in return, I had to help him get what he wanted. Money, leverage, access. Richard's jaw clenched. You're saying he used you? Nathan nodded. At first it was small, suggesting I ask for help with tuition, then rent, then supplies. But it escalated. He pressured me to ask you for more and more. Sometimes I did. Sometimes I lied to both of you. I didn't know how to stop. I was trapped between protecting him and protecting you. Miranda covered her mouth, horrified. He manipulated you. Nathan's voice cracked. Yes, and I let him. I gave him some of the money. Not all, but enough to feel ashamed. Enough to carry that weight every day through school. Richard leaned in, lawyer instincts flaring. Did your mother know? Nathan shook his head, eyes filled with regret. No. She protected me from him for so long I couldn't tell her I'd let him back into my life. I thought I could handle it. I thought I was smarter than him. I reached for his arm, my heart breaking for the boy still inside the man. Why didn't you come to me? Miranda echoed. Why didn't you come to us? Nathan looked between us, ashamed. because by the time I realized how wrong it was, I was in too deep. Then he paused, voice softening. And worse, I started to like it. The comfort, the attention, the illusion that I belonged. He looked back at me, and in doing that, I started to resent you. The room fell painfully quiet, not because I didn't expect it, but because it was finally spoken aloud. I didn't speak, not yet, because in Nathan's face I saw something raw and familiar, something I hadn't seen in him since he was a boy. Shame, not the kind you wear to manipulate pity, but the kind that eats you slowly, day after day, until you forget who you are. I didn't resent you because you did anything wrong, he said quietly. I resented you because you reminded me of where I came from, of everything I was trying so hard to outrun. I stayed still, listening. The truth doesn't always hurt because it's cruel. Sometimes it hurts because it's true. Nathan turned to the group. You all see me as this polished, accomplished person, but I wasn't born into that. I was made from exhaustion and sacrifice. My mother didn't have prestige or connections. She had blistered hands and empty cupboards. He looked at me again. There were nights I hated that reality so much, I started to rewrite it in my head, started to tell stories that made me more acceptable, more like the people I was trying to impress. Miranda's voice was soft now, cautious. Nathan, you didn't have to be anyone but yourself. He nodded. I know that now. But at the time, I thought hiding where I came from was the only way forward. Then came the voice that pierced the moment like a needle. The housekeeper at the door. Mr. Mitchell, there's a man here. He says he's Nathan's father. The entire room froze. I felt the blood drain from my face. Derek. Richard rose first, his mouth tight. Show him in, he said. The door opened, and there he was. Derek Blake stepped into the sunroom like he owned it. His once handsome face had aged hard, lines carved deep around his mouth, his suit wrinkled and stained, but the smugness in his eyes hadn't changed. He moved like the years owed him something. Richard, Miranda, he said smoothly before his gaze landed on me. Carolyn, what a surprise. His voice, that old oily charm, twisted something in my stomach. He looked around the room, then caught sight of Nathan. There he is, my boy. Nathan's expression didn't shift. He didn't smile, he didn't even blink. I'm sorry to barge in, Derek said, taking a step forward. But when I heard my son had finally... He stopped, his face hardened. What are you doing here? He asked me, as if I were a problem to be managed. She's here, Richard said sharply, because she's Nathan's mother, his real mother, the one who raised him. The temperature dropped. Derek's jaw clenched. So, he's been talking. He turned to the others with a wicked smile. But I doubt he told you the whole truth. Want to know why I really left? He looked straight at me. Tell them, Carolyn. Tell them how you cheated on me with my best friend. That's why I walked out. Nathan turned to me, stunned. Mum, is that true? I didn't flinch, my voice was calm. Yes and no. Because some truths don't fit into a sentence, and this one was just beginning to unfold. 8. The public unraveling. Written in Carolyn's voice, 500 words. The room stiffened. You could feel it, the unease tightening like a noose. Eyes flicked between me and Derek, waiting, wanting a scandal. Nathan looked dazed. Mum, what does that mean? I turned to face him, my voice soft but firm. When your father left us, he drained our account and vanished. For 3 months, I didn't know if he was dead or just gone for good. No phone call, no letter, nothing. Derek scoffed. Oh, come on. I raised a hand, silencing him. During that time, I met someone, Thomas, a friend of a friend who helped fix our broken sink, who brought groceries when I couldn't afford milk. He was kind to you, Nathan. Do you remember? Nathan nodded slowly. We weren't divorced, Derek spat, his voice rising. You were still my wife. No, I said, my voice like steel. I was your ghost. A woman you abandoned. You disappeared. When you returned, you didn't want me back. You wanted control. You threatened to take Nathan from me. You said no judge would give custody to a woman who had strayed. So I made a choice. I ended it. I chose my son. Nathan's eyes welled. You gave up love for me? I nodded. I would have given up everything for you. I did. Derek's smugness cracked, his lips curled, but there was no power behind the expression anymore. Miranda looked at him with disgust. Richard crossed his arms. I think it's time for you to leave, he said, voice quiet but commanding. Derek sneered. Or what? Or I call the police, Richard replied calmly. Financial fraud's a serious charge, and we have receipts. Derek's gaze shifted. He looked around, realized the room was no longer on his side. He turned to Nathan. You'll regret this, son, choosing them over your own blood. But Nathan didn't flinch. He looked Derek straight in the eye. The only thing I regret is not seeing you clearly sooner. Derek's face twisted. For a second, I thought he might say something cruel, venomous, but he didn't. He turned, jaw clenched, and walked out without another word. The door closed behind him with a thud that echoed through the floorboards. And just like that, the weight in the room shifted. The silence that followed wasn't tense or strained. It was a quiet relief, like the end of a long storm. Richard was the first to break it. Well, that was illuminating. Nathan sank back into his seat, rubbing his hands together. I'm so sorry, he said, eyes moving between Miranda and Richard. I should have told you the truth a long time ago. I was scared. I was ashamed. Miranda moved beside him, her voice warm. We were all deceived, Nathan, and while I wish you'd been honest, I understand why it was hard. Then she turned to me. Carolyn, I owe you an apology. I never meant to replace you. I didn't even know I was standing in your place. I nodded, emotion thick in my chest. You've been kind to him, and that's what mattered most to me. And just like that, the rebuilding began. Not with grand speeches, just quiet truth. At last, if this story moved you, if you've ever sacrificed in silence or felt erased by the very people you gave everything for, share your thoughts in the comments. Have you ever been rewritten out of your own story? We'd love to hear your voice. And if you believe no sacrifice should go unseen, no truth should be buried, support this channel by clicking that subscribe button. It's just one click, but it means the world to us. Your support helps us tell more real, raw, and powerful stories that deserve to be heard. Don't forget to like and share.